Peralta. I'm here today joined by my sister Abby and my buddy Mike. Question for you all. Who was your first love and why didn't it work out?
Makes you assume it didn't work out. No.
Because you're single, Mike.
Let's start with you, Doc.
That's a hard one. I mean, I want to say Benny, my dog, because he's obviously the best.
That's a good first love.
But he's a dog, so that's obviously never going to work out. I like humans, okay?
Ouch.
But on all seriousness, I think my first love is probably Brian O'Connor. For those who know
May he
who
rest
he
in
is.
peace.
Rest in peace. When I heard that he died, my heart hurt a little bit. So I feel like there's a lot of feelings there. So
What was it about him that
I don't know,
intrigued
just
you?
everything about Brian. Like, he was active and loyal and just very attractive.
He was kind of a little bit of the quiet type.
And your dog isn't?
Is that also something you're attracted to?
I like quiet. I don't feel like Brian, he was like strong quiet. Like, he talked when he had to talk,
Sure.
but it's not like he was the life of the party all the time, which is okay too, you know?
Yeah.
But apart from him, he is gone. So I got nobody else. I am still looking for the real first love. So we'll see. What about you, Mike?
So my first love was my mom. So she was the first person to hold me, first person to,
Freud
that
would
I
be very
saw. Well, I don't
proud.
know. Like, I think the doctor was probably the first person I saw, but my mom was there from the very beginning. So I'm a mama's boy. So it did work out because we're still together. My mom is still in my life. But now if we're talking about someone other than that, I was thinking about that and I don't know if, I guess I'm kind of in the same boat as Abby, because I've definitely liked girls or, definitely been, infatuated. And I think that may be a better term
that's
for
kind
it.
of what I mean.
I don't know if I've actually ever been in love, because I've never really gotten the opportunity to, I don't know, like get to know them and, deeper and actually have that feeling of love become more mature, become, something else. It's always just been like, just kind of the butterfly moments when you meet someone at the first time and then boom, they're gone. Not that the feeling's gone, but, I feel like the girls that I've liked in the past, they've never really been around long enough. Because I'm not the
That
type of
makes
guy
sense.
that like always, like, I'm kind of a weird case. Because like, I don't like, I don't just see a girl and then immediately like her. I'm kind of picky like that. But when I do decide to like someone, or when someone does catch my eye,
You're all in.
I go all in, and sometimes it's hard to get out.
Yeah.
And so, that's, kind of how I am. But
But you make a good point that, you decide that you like somebody, love is a choice.
yeah, you just kind of think about it, and then I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, this is great.
No, I love it.
But I think that would probably be the reason why, really ever worked out, because they were just kind of never around. The girls that I seem to like seem to always live far away, or I meet them at an event, and then I'm like, man, and then it's just
Happened
there's
to
not
me
enough
this year.
time to develop anything. I have to find someone, I guess, closer.
Or you get closer.
Or I get closer, yeah.
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 Or God does something. And
Yeah. For mine, I guess you guys know her very well. I don't know. To me, she was the perfect mix of beauty, smarts, and silliness.
I am running a blank here. I can't remember. I'm looking at you like,
Come on,
who is
Mike.
he
You know
talking
this.
about?
Mike.
You know this.
Mike.
Okay, edit it out. Who is it?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking way back even before that. Okay, yeah, okay. Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, to me, she was, again, that perfect blend. And she was never really into me. And that's kind of a shame.
It is. Yeah, I mean, it sucks when
Because,
when
I mean,
love's
I
not
guess,
reciprocated.
like in my mind's eye, I feel like we could have
Worked out.
worked out. And
The parents thought so too.
No.
No?
I mean, I wouldn't say that.
Okay, I thought you said something
Maybe
else.
they came around. I mean, they did come around later.
Oh, okay.
That's after the fact. That's after
Oh, okay.
that ship sailed.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, if you want to hear more about this story, I guess you have to tune into the extra episode that's occurring. You'll have to find that on the website as well. That's going to come out in the first or second Monday of September. So that's going to be exciting.
Okay. What time
Cool.
is that? I'll make sure to tune into that.
Full exclusive.
Oh, yeah. Today's episode is a little bit different because it's a little bit heavier and it touches on a deeper topic that is more and more prevalent every year and every time, or just as time passes on, to the point where like it's become its own thing, where mental health means different things to different people, and it's just kind of become a catch-all term. But as it relates to the context of dating and making sure that we're ready, right? Because this first season is about making sure that we ourselves are
Ready.
successful and ready individuals, to better or I should say to have a better chance at when going to date, and making sure that it's a successful dating time period. Why would you kind of say that like it's rather important, Doc?
Well, I think mental health is so important because it involves your inner being of like who you are as a person. And our whole body is connected, right? We are biophysical, spiritual people. And our brain is our command center. And if we don't got our brain working right, that affects all the rest of our body.
That's
and
true.
when it comes to mental health, when our brain is working right, that means our thoughts are working right, or at least we are working on them to improve them so that then our actions are better, our feelings are better, we're just overall happier. So I feel like if we improve our command center or our motherboard per se, we can be better individuals and we can also relate to other people better.
I think the Bible even mentions, as well as Ellen White, how, and I mean, science has caught up to say the fact that
Right. Science catches up to the Bible. That's amazing. Yeah.
to the fact that internal health is equally as important to external health.
Yes.
Well, they're part of the same thing. They're all connected.
They're one and the
You
They're
can't
all
have
connected.
one without the other.
Agree to agree. That's why when it comes to advice that some professionals give to people like suffering through depression or whatever it may be, do exercise, do something to exercise your body, because if the healthier your body, the healthier that your mind will be too. And it can also work, but I mean, the other way around too, right?
They're all
if
connected.
you're struggling in your mentals, you're gonna struggle with your body composition, with the way you look at your body, with the way you either let yourself go,
And if
or
you have
something like that.
the other way around too, whereas if you have a strong mental state, you can be going through a lot of things physically, but you can endure it better.
Agreed.
So even pain tolerance, right? There's studies out there that show that your mind controls a lot of your perception of pain and how you endure it. So it is so important to really know our minds and how to work with them.
No, that's true.
That's a good point.
I think another reason why discussing mental health in the context of dating is important is because relating to the opposite gender can be tricky when we have unsolved issues. That's where, we get terms like, she has mommy issues,
Daddy issues.
et cetera, et cetera. I feel
Trust
like
issues.
trust issues. People can get confused when, seeing certain signs, they start attributing them to pain and hurt. They start projecting to the other person, and then that can affect your dating life.
Yeah,
as
it's
well.
just I think it's just it comes down to trust. If and I was gonna kind of say this, and I don't want to like interrupt you. But like most like mental health disorders, and I think we should kind of define what mental health like issues are, especially when it comes to like illnesses. like I looked it up. It's by definition are health conditions involving changes in emotion, thinking, or behavior.
That's right.
So, and when you look at the Bible, like I think one of the reasons why it's very important to talk about this is because everybody has dealt with some type of mental health concern, and not just like, whatever life event happens here, but just because we live in sin. And, when God created us, he created human beings in a perfect world where there was peace and there was no problems and anything. But one of the very first mental health issues that we see in the Bible comes in Genesis when Adam says he was afraid. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the mental health conditions, like fear. Like when you're in a constant state of fear,
it's anxiety.
It starts to
Anxiety,
deteriorate
trauma.
your health. And so from the very beginning, and so like every human has faced that ever since. And so, it's definitely,
And it's I would say it's the most common emotion, fear.
unfortunately, yeah. it's
The first and the most common.
yeah, because they're just fear of the unknown, and then fear in relationships.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, because I feel like if we don't deal with and get a grip on our own mental health, we'll start to look for choosing the wrong people to date. We can choose the people that we perceive to be a savior to our current emotional situation, instead of looking for a partner who can actually complement our lives and who's complementary to who we are as people.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is also just due to people just, going back to that fear that we talked about, a lot of people, they're just afraid of, being alone, or they're just afraid of being seen as not, I don't know, like attractive or whatever the case may be. They just have fears that come with being single, and they just can't see themselves being single, whether they have their own, like, some insecurities, or they're, afraid of the environment that they live in. A lot of that comes down to it. And so they just grasp at whatever they feel like is, easily attainable, or whatever they feel in their head can get them that type of security that they're looking for.
Sometimes I feel like we gravitate towards what we know or what we're seeing, what we think it's normal, right? So that goes back to our parents. How did we see our dad react, or how did we see our mom react?
Or treat us.
Or treat
Or partner.
their relationship in and of themselves. So whether we like it or not, the way we relate to the opposite sex a lot of the times is determined by the way we saw,
or at
in
least
our
guided
parents.
by, not necessarily determined, but it's influenced by.
I feel like it can be heavily influenced so much unconsciously that you just do it, right? The same as like little kids pick up your mannerisms in a very unconscious way. I feel like the same is the way we can relate to others, and you have to consciously work on those things sometimes, or say, I'm not going to do it this way, because that's just how we were taught.
And not even how you're taught, it's just what you like observed.
Exactly.
But it's interesting, because I was like, Googling like some stuff, and I was trying to find out what are the main causes for mental health like issues. And the number one, it seemed to be consensus amongst like the sources I was looking at, was abuse at home. A lot of times starting from childhood abuse. Yeah. Whether it be verbal, sexual, physical, a lot of the mental health issues that we see stem from abuse that comes and starts at the home or within an intimate relationship.
And let's be honest, that makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where
that's
the basis of who you are and how you experience the world is based on, and is founded on. And that kind of goes to show the fact that if you don't know who you are, or if you don't kind of make consciousness of those things, who you date, or even who is on your radar can change.
Yes.
Because now that I've kind of developed a little bit more, there are some girls in my past who I'm like, yeah, that was not like, I like, because I didn't know who I was to the extent that I do now, that was not probably the best decision, or I can see why I was looking for something that, wasn't a partner, or vice versa. So.
And I would say also that a huge thing with mental health is just sin. We live in such a sinful world.
That's a good point.
It's a lot of the times we have it in ourselves. Like, for example, some people have depression from the time they are very little. And it could be generational. That's just like in your DNA. Sometimes it's like not so easily explained, because then some people could be like, there was never abuse in my household. You know, how come I have depression? How come I have anxiety? So I feel like that's a very good point to make, that some things are just yours. They're just in your DNA, that are there sadly because of sin.
Yeah.
And that can be worked on.
But this world, the environment that you live in can also,
Oh yeah, for sure.
like make it worse. I was actually talking to a friend of mine about that today. Like he struggles with depression and anxiety, and I asked him if he had it in his family, and he was like, yeah, my sister, my mom have it. But he also told me that he struggled with depression because he was bullied, and he actually suffered through some sexual abuse by a friend of his.
Wow.
And so now, he has a lot of fears, and it's definitely affected him in his life. A real nice guy, but it's real, for him especially. So.
And like, these are topics that we definitely want to get into, especially like dating with depression, or even dating someone with depression, or whatever mental illness. But that's something that we'll definitely cover in a different episode when we get into the more nuances of actually dating. But as we kind of focus specifically on making sure that we're strong and developed individuals before we date, I kind of want to touch upon some easy action items that can help us get a better grip on your own mental health, that can, again, better your dating life and better you as a person, whether you decide to date or not, or whether you're called to singleness or not. The first of those, I would say, is to talk to a mental health professional.
I would actually say the first one, at least for me, would be to seek guidance from God.
Yes.
Especially as a Christian, I believe that like God has said, with me, you can do nothing. And yes, there are tools out there. There are mental health professionals that he has equipped with the gifts to help other people navigate their mental health. But at the end of the day, I feel like God is the ultimate healer. And before we seek out human help, we have to make a priority to seek God first.
Exactly.
And I was actually reading here in this book before we started, Steps to Christ. It's one of my favorite books. And it's actually talking about how, like in Job 14:4, it says, can you bring a clean thing from an unclean thing? Or the carnal mind is enmity against God, for it is subject to the law of God, not indeed can be. So then it says, education, culture, the exercise of the will, human effort, all have their proper sphere. But here they are powerless. They may produce an outward correctness of behavior, but they cannot change the heart. So I love that, because God is the one that's ultimately going to make that change. And with mental health, you can go to all the therapists and they can give you all the tools. But at the end of the day, God is the one that's going to be doing the renewing of the mind, the renewing of your thoughts, which is what CBT is, changing your thoughts.
Can you define what CBT is?
Yeah, so CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. And the premise of it, I'm sure a lot of you know about this by now, is that our thoughts influence our actions and feelings. And it's all one big revolving thing that one affects the other and vice versa. And so if that's CBT and our thoughts, like God says, I know your thoughts. Like, I knew you before you were born. So it's like he's the ultimate CBT therapist. Literally the one that can renew the mind completely.
I've experienced that personally.
Yeah, and it's fun. It's interesting, and I'm kind of just going to piggyback off of that, because when you read the Bible, there's a lot that God says that's always about, that peace of mind, that calm spirit. And it's funny because one of the literal names, when you read Isaiah 9:6, God, when they were prophesying about the first coming of Jesus Christ as a baby, in Isaiah 9:6 it says, and he will be called Wonderful what?
Counselor.
Counselor. Jesus is a counselor.
Yeah, he is.
Mental health Counselor, and mighty God, obviously, everlasting Father, and then lastly, the Prince of Peace. It's like God knows that mental health, I'm not going to say it's like, he knows, definitely knows that mental health is like the biggest thing we have to face and combat due to sin here, you know, because
I mean, sin, let's be honest, sin is an internal issue.
It is.
Sin is not just correcting actions. It's about correcting the heart and correcting the mind.
But there are external forces and internal forces that affect it, and they're here because of sin. And we stated at the very beginning, you know, sin brought fear into the world. Adam said he hid from God, like you hid from your father because you were afraid. That's what sin has caused, and that's like a mental health issue.
It's no wonder that that's exactly what Satan attacks. He attacks your mind, where you put your attention, where you put your focus, your thoughts. Like, he knows that if he can get you in your mind, he's got you. He doesn't need to do anything else.
The mind is the most
right here.
Powerful thing that we have.
It's the motherboard.
It is. Yeah. I mean, obviously you need the heart, you need like all the other body parts, but the mind, man, like, that's
the only organ I believe that you can't change. And I would know.
I mean, I would know too.
What do you mean the only? What do you mean the only organ?
So
you
can get a new heart, you can get a new liver, you can get a new leg, you can get everything. You can't
get a brain transplant.
But you can't. There hasn't been brain transplants yet.
I thought you said heart. I'm like,
no. You could do heart transplant. Okay. But like I'm saying, I would know because I had a brain tumor. Like I lost the piece. I'm not getting that back.
Oh, that explains it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I just thought she was because it was my sister. But if you're noticing it too,
that's been going on and on. No. Just kidding. You're great.
Hey, Doc. What are some of the benefits? Apart, like as a number two, right? Second to going to God and seeking, His help with your sin issue, with your heart issue, with your behavioral issues too. What would you say are some of the benefits of talking to a mental health professional?
I think one of the number one benefits of talking to a mental health professional is having a soundboard to bounce off of. A lot of the times we think a lot in our head. But that's just us, right? We are not an unbiased third person. So even just the thought of going to an educated individual who you can just spill out everything you got in your mind and they can come back at you and you're like, well, you said this, this, and this.
Without judgment.
And it's like, why? And then they can ask you specific questions that can help you pinpoint different things that you would have never thought of before. Because, you're not an unbiased person and you think that everything is, and you might have distorted thinking. So the sounding board is a big thing. Also, you can learn skills as to how to combat different emotions or like the ants, the automatic negative thoughts, how to work through those.
That's a good acronym. I like that, ants.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people.
All these acronyms.
Well, I mean, I didn't come up with it. It's everybody uses it, like Dr. Amen and stuff. So it's just, how to actually put into practice what you hear on Instagram or all these little things that say, think positive or blah, blah, blah.
And how to discern whether it's good advice or bad advice.
Or whether it works for you, right? And also, I feel like it's a safe space where to open yourself up. Because a lot of the times, especially when you talk about trauma, it can take you back. It can revive old emotions. And let's say if it's something really big like sexual assault or whatever, if you're not with the right trained individual, you can regress, right? So that provides that safe space for you to adequately work through whatever it is you're working through with a person who's going to guide you every step of the way. Because that is what a mental health professional is. It's a guide. They are not there to fix your problems. I'm sorry to break it to you guys. They are there to kind of...
And that's why they're not number one.
Exactly. And
God is the one that can fix them.
And that's why, I think Jesus, when he was on earth, he did so much work because, it wasn't that he was just helping their needs. It was their spiritual needs too with the physical needs. Yeah. And so he combined the two, and that was able to, he was able to spread the gospel, so much
It's
more.
always a heart issue first.
Well, yeah,
and then-
he would tell people, your sins are forgiven, rise up and walk. Because people, they had like mental anguish. They were scared that they
I
were
actually love that
saved,
Bible
that they
story.
weren't saved. Yeah, like the one man who was brought in
at
through the
pool
roof.
of Bethsaida, yeah.
Yeah, or the guy at the pool of the
Oh, sorry,
Bethsaida.
different stories.
But
But
the
yeah.
same thing. There was sin issues in the life, and God would reach them through or talk to them about that or through that those experiences. And then after they reconciled that, because obviously the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they were casting people out. They were just hypocrites. They weren't good people. They weren't representing Christ, and so people lived in a lot of fear. And they didn't have a relationship with God. And so Jesus came and changed all that. He told them, your sins are forgiven. Like, I love you. Now rise up and walk. And the complete life was changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he knew how to reach those people, right? For some people, he healed them first, right? Before he said your sins are forgiven. Or for some people, he knew that it was that anguish inside that was killing them more than the fact that they couldn't walk.
Right.
So it's like, even a health professional, they're not Jesus and they don't know what it
Right.
is at the core. They can help you identify what is that first thing that we need to work on before we open these other jars.
Doors.
And it's
Because you have to build strength, mental strength, to be able
Exactly.
to handle
Yeah.
the different issues.
and it is and it should be no surprise, like as society goes farther and farther away from God, like especially not being in school and can't do things in public places, that we've had an increase of mental health problems.
Yeah.
Like a big increase, like especially in America, where we have the most money and supposedly the most freedom to do things. People here, we have like, compared to other peer countries, we have higher depression rates, higher suicide rates, and then other countries.
That goes to show money, freedom.
Money, freedom, it
They
does
don't-
not mean a thing.
They don't solve the problems of the soul.
They come with
It does not.
consequences.
We need God, and that's why I'm a big supporter of obviously the Advent Health message. I try to go on mission trips to do like health like clinics and stuff like that, and we help people because that's how you fix people. You fix their physical needs, but it's the mind that needs the real help.
Hey Doc, you mentioned to me last night that you feel like most people, if not everyone, should try should try seeing a professional at least once. And I know that seeking help doesn't go against biblical principles first
No,
and
it does
foremost.
not.
God uses those mental health professionals. Why do you think that, or why do you feel that everyone should go at least once?
At least once. That goes back to one of my first points, that it's even just a sounding board, where you can even just take what you're thinking, or at least even take to your therapist of, this is how I've been processing life. Where's an area that I could improve?
Where's a blind spot?
Exactly. And we all have little blind spots that we don't even see, that we don't even address. That sometimes we are working on this thing, but there's this bigger thing here that we can't even see.
That's why they're called blind spots.
Exactly. So I think even just one time in your life, just talking to that person, and they can even tell you like, hey, you don't need to come to therapy all the time, because not everybody needs therapy once a week.
Agreed.
And it's a conversation you can have with your therapist, a person that kind of knows, be like, hey, here are some tools that you can use throughout your daily life. Like, come back if you need some more. But then they can also be like, well, this is something serious, and you need a little bit of more work, that I can help you guide you through it in a healthy way. So that's why I think that at least everybody should go once, especially sometimes for big decisions, like for example, marriage. It's like a huge altering life decision.
Yeah.
I think
Huge.
Well, we have
proponent
marriage
of
counselors, and
exactly.
Well, you usually
That's
go to
what
the
she's
pastor.
referring to.
Well, you usually go to the pastor for counseling, don't you?
You can do both.
Yeah, you can do both. But I feel like even we have premarital counseling, and I feel like a lot of the times people go to premarital counseling after they already agreed to marry someone. Mm-hmm. And
Yeah, but that's weird, right? Because
too late.
How would you frame it to someone saying, "Hey, I haven't proposed yet. I like you a lot, and I'm thinking that we're going in this direction. let's go talk to somebody to see if we're
See, but
like if we're apt
I still think it
for,
can
for
be.
marriage.
I still think it can be a surprise as to when you propose. But I feel like as a Christian, if you're intentional about marriage and you're having that conversation with your partner, I feel like premarital counseling can be really huge into the fact of like giving you of like this is what marriage is. So that when that person does say, "Do you want to marry me?" you know that everything that comes along with it. Because whether a lot of people like to admit it or not, after you say yes when someone proposes, it is very hard to take it back.
To say no.
A lot of people get married just because they don't want to be embarrassed.
Yep,
Because they're
I
scared to
almost
say
had
no
a friend
and
do
stuff.
that.
That's-
Or
Wow.
a
that's
girl told.
That's what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
do that counseling before you get married, my personal opinion. So that once you say that yes, you can fully say yes,
Well,
knowing what is coming. So that's why.
The issue with my friend, by the way, was the person was not Christian and he was Adventist. So, but she was like, I don't know. I didn't want to say no because we had already planned everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See, or we already spent all the money.
Yeah.
So we talked about going to God, number one, seeking,
Professional help
as number two. I think a third step, an easy step, is to just get to know yourself a little better. I feel like in an age of so much content, I mean, we're calling it content now, right? But it's like, it's audio, like something like this, or it could be video, like also like this, because now we're doing video.
Yeah.
Whether it's music, something is always in our ears, and I feel like we don't spend a lot of time by ourselves, like enough, to the point where we don't get to know ourselves and how we react, or just take into account to even just be aware of, hey, how is my life right now? Like, how do I feel? Am I scared? Am I neglecting something? Like, am I avoiding like someone because I have some unresolved issues? Do I have some skeletons in my closet that I'm afraid to touch, and it's affected my life trajectory, maybe irrecoverably at this point? There's a lot of things that we need to do to just get to know ourselves better, and I don't feel like it takes a lot of time. If we just take, let's say, 5 minutes out of the day to just stop and think, what did I like that I did today? What didn't I like that I did today? What is something that happened to me that I enjoyed, and vice versa? Just being aware of the different levels and the different things that occur around you and how you react, I think puts you in a better spot. Some advice that I would even put out there would be to like put yourself in new experiences. Try something new.
I also think that another way you can get to know yourself better is by getting to know your family lineage, your family tree. You guys remember back then it was more common in school. You would have to do your family tree.
That's
like
true.
Your grandma, your great grandma. I mean, I'm not.
And then you have to come home and like ask, hey mom, who's grandma's mom? What do you call her? Like, is it great grandma? I mean, in Spanish it's different because you have bisabuela, then you have tatarabuela, and then how many tataras can you put there? It's like, it's
and then all the fake family. Well, they're not fake, but all the names, at least in DR, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, who are the real uncles and the real aunts?
Nobody knows if it's a real sibling or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially from the old generation.
I mean, interestingly, we had somebody that grew up with us who we considered a sister because we grew up with her, but she was actually our cousin.
Yeah. So just like not only getting to know your lineage, it helps you know your physical health. Like, at the hospital or at the doctor, they always ask you, like, does your family have a history of cancer? This. You can also learn about the history of mental health in your family in the past.
That's true.
And not only knowing the past can help you not only feel alone, that like other people in my family have struggled through this. I am not alone. I am not a unicorn. I am not the only person in the world suffering through this. But it can also help you choose to decide to be different. I heard this saying that says, the things you don't conquer now is the things that your kids will have to battle with.
Yikes.
And
they're already starting from behind because they have a parent who can't even guide them.
Exactly.
In that space.
Exactly. So getting to know our families the history, the different traumas, and how that has impacted it and molded who we are, it is so huge because they are us. We are them. Like, we're one big unit. We're not just alone. You know what I mean?
I do.
So I was gonna say, and those are very good points, but for me, at least what I've tried to think of when I've come back from places of just I don't know, lowness or being sad. For me, I think it's important to understand that if I start to try to learn who I am, I just feel like I'm not comfortable with doing that because I feel like the person who I am may not be the person God wants me to be. So I feel like
that's a scary thought, right?
Is.
Because you see yourself so far from the ideal.
Exactly. And so, I don't want to
And it's daunting. And
and I don't want to go back into that same place. And obviously, when it comes to your family and, just learning things, obviously that's great. But I feel like it's important to also re-identify yourself, but through Christ.
Yes.
And to
Good
know
call.
if you start studying the Bible, praying. And I know you talk about that soundboard. I got to a place now where, I know my dad, he always says prayer isn't posture. When we're having pastoral prayer, if you can't kneel, it's fine. Because obviously there's older people, they can't kneel. But, prayer doesn't have to be like you closing your eyes all the time or kneeling. Prayer can be, sometimes don't even say it's
Lifting your
prayer.
heart to God.
Just talk. Jesus or God, when he was talking to Moses, he said, he invited Moses to talk to him as a friend. He's like, come and talk to me as a friend. And so that's how I talk to God. And I'd be like, sometimes I'd be tearing up and I'd just be alone in my room in the dark. And I'd just be talking to God as if he's right there.
Right
and I'd be
there
like,
with you.
God, why does this keep happening? What do you want me to do? I don't know. God, can you help me here? I just talk to him like I talk to you sometimes.
right.
He's like the perfect sounding board. Like,
Exactly. Because he knows exactly everything that you've gone through because he's seen it, right?
Yeah.
He's seen it. He knows the people that are involved in the situation. He knows everything and he knows exactly how to fix it. And so that just gives me more confidence than anybody, even though it's good to go talk to other people, but just going back to, rediscovering yourself through Christ. Once you do that and you start to spend more time with him, those things in your life that you used to like, or maybe that you would have gone towards before in the past, you're gonna be a different person, and it's gonna lead you to a better place. Corinthians 5:17 says, "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. Old things have passed away." I want to be like a new creation. I don't want to be, going back to, or maybe looking at things that I shouldn't look at, or going to things that I shouldn't do, or that it's not going to help me. I'm not saying they're bad, but it's not going to help me become a better person, get me into a stronger mindset.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Out of the three things that going to God, going to a mental health professional, and also getting to know yourself better, I feel like it would be good to pinpoint what to actually talk to the health professional about, what to talk to God about, and what to talk to even yourself about. I feel like the first area of focus is yourself. For example, like I put down here, what triggers you? Why does it trigger you? What motivates you? What makes someone a future partner? What makes you a future partner someone can count on, et cetera, et cetera. But going back on kind of what triggers you and what doesn't, Abby, what would you say that's something that, or how does that affect knowing that, getting to know yourself better? How does that kind
knowing your
of tie
triggers?
in?
Well, if you know your triggers, you know what to do. Well, at least if you've done the work of self-improvement, when you know your triggers, you know what steps you can take to combat the natural response, usually unhealthy response that we have developed because of that action.
And when I say trigger, I mean an unplanned reaction that's usually, big to something that you didn't anticipate, and it's usually a negative reaction.
And it can be something simple too. Like, for example, if I ever hear my mom or my dad call me by my name, my government name, like my hairs kind of stick up. I'm like, I'm in trouble. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Get the belt.
that's a trigger.
The trauma.
Or like, I don't know if you remember, Josh, like whenever we get in trouble and they'd ask us to come into the room and kneel down to pray before we got a whooping.
Like, I see where they were coming from in the sense that, like,
yeah.
like they were walking us through the process.
Let's
of, like,
pray.
This kind of sucks for me too, yo.
I'll be praying,
Like-
Lord, don't give me a whooping. Stop the hand.
I mean, that would be
Be
our
like-
prayers, right?
Send
Right,
the angel
right.
who came to Isaac.
And then their prayers are like,
this is
God,
not-
I pray that they stop being idiots and get their stuff together.
Yeah. So, like, stuff
but-
like that. They're like,
My
little
dad would
triggers.
always be like, I'm doing this because I love you. And I'm like,
Yeah,
I
okay.
don't care right now.
No.
How about
Sit
you
me down
don't
in the
love
bed.
me?
Talk to me softly. This is because of love. I'm like,
You want to
No.
see me cry?
no.
That's funny.
But, God rebukes those he loves. And so,
Chastens.
so
Yes.
there you go. So our parents, they love us and they want us to improve. So they gotta, or at least they used to hit kids. I don't think they hit kids that much no more.
And look at where society's at.
You got entitled little kids.
I saw I used to work at Piggly Wiggly. It's a grocery store here in Wisconsin. I was coming back from break. I saw a little kid, probably like maybe 4 or 5 years old, in the aisle with his mom, kick his mom in the shin.
Okay.
And she was like, how could you kick me? I'm your mother. And then the kid was like,
That would never
you
happen.
better not call the cops on me, or you better not hit me back. I'll call the cops on you. I was like,
That is so.
I just stood there. I was just like,
If that had
Do
been
I
in a
need to
black
get involved?
household,
no.
she would have left with a casket.
Yeah.
For her
Or
child.
Latino.
Black, Dominican,
Black
Southern
eyes.
white. No.
And to be clear, overreacting to this is
Asian
not
too.
the answer.
No, it is not.
But
I almost was going to get involved. Like, if you hit her again, I'm going to have to call the cops on you. That is domestic violence, kid.
Yes, it is. It is. You
That's
gotta,
where it starts.
you gotta teach them young.
My dad always told me, like, the way you learn how to treat your future wife, it starts at home. Mm-hmm. With how you treat your mom and how you treat your sister.
would you guys say or can have a sense of what triggers you?
Yeah.
Where you are right now?
All of my triggers, probably not. 'Cause
Okay.
I haven't faced all that life has for
To
me.
to give you? Yeah.
Yeah.
When you say triggers you to just like do
Like
something.
Abby was like Abby was saying, like when they call her Esmirna,
Oh, okay.
she's like, shoot. What do I do now?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think when people insult my intelligence, or they're specific words that definitely, make the blood boil. Or when I see people, and I try to. I'm one that takes a lot of punishment. Sometimes it's not always the best way to go about it. Sometimes you just need to remove yourself and just cut the cord. But another thing, when I see people who are rude and disrespectful to others, that really gets me boiling. Or just like, not being sincere. That triggers me, and it hasn't triggered me to like, do anything crazy, but it definitely
Sure.
gets the thoughts rolling, and they're not good thoughts.
Okay, so now while I say that, why do you think those things trigger you? Like Abby, for example, you were saying that it was because of the fact that like you had done something wrong or something like that. Mike, would you say you would know why those things trigger you? I mean, you don't have to say it now, but like you've made yourself aware.
Oh, it's simple. I don't have to explain it. It's just because I'm a sinner and I need Christ more in my life.
I have this friend who he's a good guy, but like I don't see him as much as I used to, or maybe I just don't for whatever reasons. He like when something bad happens, I feel like when something triggers him, he jumps to the worst possible conclusion as to why something happens.
I know people like that.
There's
I
a
think-
lot of people like that.
There are a lot of people like that, and I mean, as much as I want to be like, oh, don't be stupid about it, it's just life, man. Like, that's just the way things are sometimes, that we just don't all understand. You know what I mean?
I think a lot
it's
of it.
just hard.
I think a lot of it comes from past experiences.
Yes.
Because people,
Most
they
of it
want to
comes from
protect-
past experiences.
Yeah, because most people, they want to protect themselves. They don't want to go through that same thing again, so they just immediately.
Which is exactly
Immediately
why
go.
it's super important to deal with those things while you're single now, and to focus on it. Because if you don't, you're gonna interpret a certain action or a trigger as malice. I mean, there's actually this quote which I completely abide by, and I kind of took it to heart ever since I heard it, which was, "Don't attribute to malice what you can attribute to ignorance." In other words, just because someone messed with you or, hurt you in some way, it's not always malicious. Sometimes they were just ignorant about it and didn't know.
But I can't fault people for acting that way though, because when we say to be like Christ, that can only go so far, because obviously we're not God, right? God knows the thoughts. He could see into the future, which makes it all the more impressive how he was able to stay on the cross, knowing, that a lot of them didn't like him, or how he was able to do anything, right? Because you just know those people, they're not going to appreciate, what you do. It's astonishing how Christ can do that. He's amazing. I'm glad I'm not Christ, because
like
if I was, like, people would have been zapped out. But that's just me. But
Yeah, I mean,
sorry. It's just, anyway, like what I was saying, like, I can't like fault people for doing that, because we just literally do not know.
No.
But God
that's what
tells
I'm
us
saying,
how,
like-
God does tell us how to deal with it, though.
and I also feel like it's so much more difficult and like a weight to carry all the time when you're attributing something to malice, because now you want to hate this person or treat them differently or keep them at arm's length when they're in fact just being ignorant and just don't know.
Can you give me an example, like if they
Sure.
insult you like ignorantly? I that's
so
an interesting thing to me.
so for example, I talked to this guy about this girl who I liked. At the time, he had seen her and I interact. In fact, he was there when her and I first met. And he's like, "Oh, you guys should get together, et cetera, et cetera." And I'll just be honest with you, the chemistry was off the charts, and I love it. But at one point, she kind of like took a step back, and then he's like, "Oh, dude, like forget about her. Like, you don't talk to her again." A lot of girls are like this nowadays, or just kind of generalizing and taking it to that level. Is not necessarily the case. That actually happened like super recently, where a girl I'm talking to, she pulled away. I mean, she kind of pulled away.
He's not
recently.
lying, is he?
That's the thing. He absolutely was.
He is mine.
Yeah. I mean, like you may not feel that way.
It's his
but
experience, though. He's probably gone
after-
through
You're
right.
girls
His-
that
it's-
that
She
have
reached
done that
out
to him
again
many times.
and after. I mean, I understand that, but that's exactly my point. You can't go into dating with that kind of mentality in mind, because everybody's different. Like, she came back. Like, I mean, I saw her on Sunday, this past Sunday, and I'm talking about two different girls here. I mean, it's not the same one, but the point is, the one on Sunday sat me down, and she talked about everything that she had been going through and why she had to pull away. And I understood it at the time, and it still hurt at the time, but but not attributing it to malice. When she did reach out, I wasn't on the defensive, like, man, like, you had your shot and you missed it, or you're just like all the other girls. You can't really go into it like that, because though someone has hurt you in the past, that doesn't mean that everyone is going to hurt you. And
Yes.
I'll put it, or I'll go even this far. I know for a fact that I hurt my ex-girlfriend in some ways. And if people knew how in the ways I treated her badly, which, I mean, it's not like bad. I'm not I wasn't a terrible boyfriend, but just for the sake of argument, I would want a second shot, right? So I wouldn't want women to think of me as, that type of guy who he was 3 or 4 years ago, or just that one relationship during that, in that one instance, that one time. Does that make sense? So we have to be careful with generalizing and making sure that we know and that we deal with the things that trigger us, because we have to go into the dating space. We have to go into relationships with an open mind, giving people the benefit of the doubt, just like we want them to give us the benefit of the doubt too.
There's something that I learned that I like. Matthew Hussey says it a lot. It's yes, you don't know if that new person that you're talking to is going to hurt you, but trust yourself that you're stronger, that you'll be able to deal with it.
Wow.
So like people will let you down, and that's just a fact, and that's part of sin and the sinful world. But at the end of the day, the only thing we can control is ourselves and how we react to things. And yes, it might still hurt, but you can reorient yourself of this to like reassure yourself that I still have value. This person did something, but that doesn't mean everybody's like that.
Right.
Because
But
then
a lot of
that
people
way
are.
you don't get this whole pessimistic view on life.
But you have to go into it with a positive mindset, Mike.
Or
That's
like-
my
I know.
thought. So going in with that generalization puts you in a bad mental space, like when you go in.
I think today is very hard.
It is very hard.
Be that way because dating is so casual. Divorce rates are high. Mm-hmm. People are cheating on each other. I literally hear this at my job, bro. There's married people with kids and they're cheating on each other with people at work.
That's sad.
And they're open about it.
Ouch.
I'm like, how is this?
Yeah.
That stuff, it's just mind-boggling to me. And
Yeah.
so there's just such a big lack of distrust, and I can't blame people honestly for it. But I think God gives, we don't want to be pessimistic, obviously. You want to treat people who they are. Now, I'm not going to fault someone if they're, taking a longer time to open up. I don't want to confuse positivity or not being positive with being protective of yourself, because the Bible tells us to be harmless as doves, but wise as a serpent. And I wish I could quote that verse, but it's in the Bible though, I promise.
It's in the show notes, which you can find
Yes.
on Spotify or on our website or whatever.
Yes, we have show notes. But I think it's it's we have to understand that there's just going to be some people. While it's not good to be pessimistic, they are going to have that wall up.
Yes.
But how do you deal with not going pessimistic? What is
I would
the
say
key thing to do?
You go in with a positive mindset.
How do you do that? How do you get that positive
Okay,
mindset?
well, here's the thing. You're going to encounter walls and you are going to encounter roadblocks, but don't go in looking for them. So cross that bridge when you get there is my point. So you go in
That's
happy.
hard.
It's hard.
You gonna cross a
You're
bridge,
right. You're
get
right.
hurt
It
first?
can
It's
be
easier
hard.
said than done.
It can be hard, but I feel like it's imperative because everybody's gonna have roadblocks. I have roadblock. I have things that I'm not good at and that I need to work on, and I don't want a girl that I'm talking to go in with a mentality of, oh shoot, let me see what I can protect myself from him from, because that's not giving me a chance and I'm not giving her a chance.
Yeah.
She's been
The
hurt
opposite
before.
too.
She's probably had many boyfriends, daddy issues.
Okay, you know what? That's probably
Those are
true.
all legit
but
things.
I would need to she would need to vocalize it when she's ready to, right?
Yeah.
And to at least be able to say, hey, this is a difficult area. I can't cross this bridge right now, but at least to vote and to say something, because leaving things up in the air is not going to help anybody out.
Something that I always think it's funny, and me and my mom always laugh about it, is there's this guy, this psychologist in Dominican Republic, that he's like, be nice selfishly.
That's interesting.
Don't do things for other people, do them for yourself. For example,
Yeah,
assume
for
the
example.
benefit of the doubt selfishly for yourself, because when you assume the benefit of the doubt, you give yourself more peace of mind. Because a lot of the time,
I find that so true.
when you're thinking about everything of the what ifs, what if this, what if it doesn't, that is so much work in your head. But whereas if you're going in like
Fresh.
giving people the benefit of the doubt, not naively, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being nice and just, doing it
Do it for your own sake.
for your own sake. Like, selfishly.
Even better, do it for God.
There you go. Do
Thank
it for
you.
God.
And I was trying to find where the parable is at. But there's a parable in the Bible where it talks about a man building his house on the sand.
Mm-hmm.
And then the waves came and
washed it away.
washed it away. And obviously
Yeah.
the waves represent life, whatever life throws at us.
Whatever torment.
Like, it is impossible to build your house upon other people, upon yourself, because you're going to make mistakes. People are going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
People are just like mean, like, and so it's just impossible. Like, eventually stuff's going to happen where if all your faith and your hopes and dreams are on that one person, it's just going to
That's a good
wash
way of putting
away.
it.
But if you build your house on solid ground, anything can come
And you'll be
and
good.
you'll still be standing. Whether the person leaves, whether the person you're pursuing.
Because God is that solid ground for us
Exactly.
Christians.
Yeah.
Because, and we kind of mentioned this last episode because, I had said where, Christians, we have that home base to always go back to, whatever happens in life, which is, why I don't understand, like, how people can, not buy into the concept of there being a higher being. I mean, I can understand why, because people just want to live the lives they want to live. But, like, you just have so much more peace and so much.
And to be
hope.
honest, they just don't know him like you do.
That's true.
Right.
That's true. But, like, just in general, like, I feel like, once you believe in something that has, like, who's supreme power, who, you can go to for help when nobody else can help you, can't even help yourself, that just does something mentally to you.
That's true.
Going back to the mental health, like, it helps you sleep better at night.
Amen to that.
I mean, Daniel thrown in the lion's den the next day, or potentially even before that, when he had to get the answer to Nebuchadnezzar's dream. If you read it, the Bible says that he got the vision in a night dream. He was asleep. Daniel was asleep. He was asleep for sound, peaceful, not knowing if he was going to live the next day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
To circle back to focus to the area of focus of yourself, when you go talk to God, when you go talk to your specialist, and when you spend time with yourself, I feel like it's also good to focus and to touch upon what is it that gets you out of the bed in the morning. What is it that motivates you? And I even put in here because what that does is, why can your future partner count on you, right? Because if that generator in there isn't built on solid rock, like Michael was talking about, if that doesn't run on a renewable fuel, you're not going to be somebody that they can count on. And guess what? That person if they haven't done their own work, they're not going to be somebody that you can count on. So when you talk about, the area of yourself and what motivates you, knowing what pushes you forward helps you search for a partner that can complement you. Recently, I was bowling with my sister and a couple friends, and I was bowling the worst game of my life. I'm usually like a pretty decent bowler.
Where was I?
Not invited. That sounds
I don't know
terrible.
where
I'm
you
sorry,
were, Mike.
buddy. Actually, it was like a spur of the moment.
Very
Thank you.
impromptu.
I thought we were friends, but okay.
If only you lived close.
You live like 50 minutes
I'm here
away.
every week.
Whatever, continue. I don't care.
Wait, you actually work Saturday nights, don't you? Mostly.
No.
Okay, that's good. To
It was something super like last minute.
yeah, it was last minute. Like they showed up last
And they
minute.
showed up without notice.
Like with no notice, and it was kind of interesting. But anyway, the point was I was bowling the worst game of my life, and I
You
kept
prayed to Jesus. No, I'm just joking.
well, that happened too. I did pray about it. I was like, man, I don't know what's going on, and I was just noticing that the ball was always pulling right on me, and just pulling right, and I was like trying to just either my hand position or my release or just whatever. It was just pulling right almost every time, and it was like embarrassing. But then just somewhere along the line, I got this thing to just position myself more right, so that if it is going right every single time, either something was wrong with my fingers or my hand or something, if it is going right, adjust to the point, like adjust for your weakness.
I like how he blames his fingers or his hands.
Yeah. So I adjusted and stood more to the left of the lane, and then instantly my game just kind of took like a spike. And I was like, man, why the hell did I not think of this sooner? Like, I am stupid for not thinking about this. So then I actually started applying it in other areas of my life. As to like, okay, whoa, like, what is it about, like, in what area am I struggling and how can I complement it? It actually, like, put me to work more in tennis. Because working, I mean, I kind of gained a lot of pounds, like, since the pandemic, like an uncomfortable amount that I mean, I just don't like the way I look or even feel. I mean, this is just strange. I mean, I'm used to being super skinny and whatnot. But working out and just going on a treadmill is not something that I enjoy. Now, I can psych myself go into it, and I did for a while, but then I kind of stopped just because I got busy, and busy is not a good excuse. I mean, I just stopped putting it as a priority. But what I did with bowling and kind of stood to the right, I did with tennis, in that it's something that I enjoyed. And then I told you guys that conditioning was the worst part of my game. So now I'm conditioning on purpose to like I'm using tennis as an adjuster to help my physical and like my physical health. So I noticed like muscles coming in, and like my core is tighter. So like when you serve, I'm like, wait, like this feels good. Like am I back? like my calves are getting stronger and super sexy and whatnot.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
He's putting himself out there, ladies. He's trying
But
to.
the point is like I feel like if we pay attention to those things, those blind spots, and we spend time with that, we can learn to adjust them so that we can be better, and also use it as fuel or motivation to get another goal, or complete another goal, like I did through tennis. I'm also getting healthier and getting in way better shape. So what would you guys say is an example of that for you? Like, what, like, I mean, would you know what burns inside you? And if not, why not?
What burns inside me, like my purpose for life.
Sure. Also like some ways in which you've like used that knowledge to adjust.
Yeah. So I think my purpose, or something that I've seen more and more, is that my purpose is to serve. I love serving others, and
you've done that through
in the community,
serving the community, serving
at
at church
and stuff. And so a weakness of mine is that I tend to think that I'm right, that my logic is the best logic.
Such a woman thing to say, huh, Mike?
Don't come at me like that, Josh. You think you're right too. I think it's something that we struggle with in our family.
No comments.
But anyway, I tend, that's a weakness of mine that I've noticed, and I've been working on it over the years. And like, for example, like if I hear somebody and I'm like, well, they said it wrong, or they're clearly off base, or you could like give more information or more context, like very judgy as to like how people are doing things. And or like even with my friends, I'm like, I told you not to do that. Like,
we've been through this.
Like, you did it, and then exactly that happened.
There's no need to be surprised at the consequences.
So I've noticed that when you need to serve, that judgmental attitude is not gonna help. It can be a barrier. So I've been working on it in the sense of like, when I hear something and that little voice inside me wants to go of like, well, they're completely off base. I have to like remind myself, like, you don't know everything. Like, they have a different perspective on life. Like, what they have to offer is valid, and I can learn something from this. And I feel like that talk that I put myself through, like whenever I get that feeling to just go like, oh, like, like, listen to me, like, I know the way. It's just kind of like, no, like I gotta push myself down, and I feel like that has helped me be more effective into like how I serve and how people perceive me, instead of more judgmental, but like more open-minded. And I feel like that helped me in my, what I foresee as my main purpose in life, which is to serve.
I like that.
And I kind of like that too. I think I struggled with that too. I think I struggle with a lot of things, but
Welcome
Don't
to
we
the
all?
club, kid.
no, like because and you ever heard the term? There's multiple ways to skin a cat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So your way doesn't have to be the only way, right?
Exactly.
There's many ways to do things, and that just makes life much better to know that there's multiple ways. There's different things we can see and learn from, and different ways how to do things. And so I think that's definitely something that I also had to look at myself, because I've always been put into leadership positions, like when it comes to also doing church ministry and stuff like that. And so when you're the guy who's supposed to lead, sometimes you can forget how to just be a follower sometimes, or just kind of be somebody who helps.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Right. That's a good point.
And so that can definitely help, not realizing that can also cause conflicts and friction and stuff like that, and people feel like you're undermining them or demeaning them. So it's definitely important, and especially for a relationship. I don't know. I know we kind of have like the patriarchal mindset where the guy is the spiritual leader, but not necessarily. It's supposed to be both mom or husband and wife together being spiritual.
That's going to be a good episode.
Yeah,
be a
we were
good
just
episode.
talking about that this week.
Yeah, it was Abby. It was, we were talking about that.
I
but
opened
to
the
circle
Pandora's box. I opened it.
to kind of circle back to the like to apply to dating here and kind of our motivation. I feel like another good benefit of knowing and finding out what motivates us and just kind of getting that going is we may find out that for some of us our fuel is dad's approval or mom's approval, or trying to live out your dad's dreams for you or your mom's dreams for you, and that's not something that can really drive you to a healthy place. So the earlier that you know that, the earlier that you can pivot and then be able to access the life that God has for you.
I
much
wouldn't
faster.
necessarily call them fuel. I would call it childhood wounds that drive you. Because I feel like fuel gives you energy, whereas like when they're childhood wounds, it depletes energy.
Yeah, so think of like a non-renewable resource that just depletes from the planet.
So like if you're striving for daddy's approval,
Mm-hmm.
like you may be CEO, but like you don't have peace. You're exhausted.
And
So
maybe-
it isn't fuel. It's retracting from who you are. So I feel like a better name for it would be like childhood wounds.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Especially
good point.
for those daddy and mommy issues.
Or, I mean, they could have been very good dad or very good parents. They're just, very successful. And people have expectations because your parents are so successful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine being Michael Jordan's son because he was not a
He's just
good
done.
basketball player. Like his son didn't even make it to the NBA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, isn't that
He's
crazy?
just not-
the
he's
best
just not that
basketball
guy.
player in the world. His son couldn't even go pro.
I mean, think about Bronny,
right?
I don't think he's
that's
gonna
that's
get-
rough.
No,
Yeah.
he's pretty good.
Yeah, but he's not LeBron.
He just-
Well, he's
good.
not, there's only going to be
And
like
he
one
just-
LeBron,
didn't
but
he have
he's
like
still,
a-
he's
Right.
still,
Didn't he have
he's-
like a cardiac arrest?
He had some issue that.
So
Yeah.
he's got some health problems that are probably not gonna.
he'll be all right.
He'll be all right.
I mean, at
He's
this
gonna be-
point,
he's gonna be
his
a top
dad
pick.
was literally nicknamed the Chosen One.
Yes, like they're saying he's got it.
he won't be
That's
the same
crazy.
as his dad, but he can pave his own way.
Yeah,
He'll be a good
as
player.
we all should. And then lastly, in the area of ourselves and kind of getting to know ourselves a little better, before we kind of move on to familial and friendships as an area to focus on, it's just knowing a little bit about what your weaknesses are. And I mean, I touched a little bit upon that with the bowling story, but we also need to know like some of them are fixable, and if not, they need to be mitigated. Knowing our blind spots can help us, guide on what actions to take to better engage with others. So if we know that we have abandonment issues, we need to see that, recognize it, so that when something like that comes along in the dating space, we can have a game plan, as Abby likes to say, a game plan of how to address it.
Well, apart from the judging thing, that self-righteousness, that some books call it.
The Bible.
Yeah.
Some random book.
Random book.
I mean, yes. I wasn't thinking about the Bible, but yeah. Another weakness of mine that I've started to address more and more, that I feel like has helped me in my relationships, is the whole you factor. A lot of the times, like when we're talking to someone, it's like, it's because of you, like I did this because you did this. And it's not like I'm perfect. I still struggle with that. But a lot of the times I'm trying to reframe it towards like, I feel this. Whereas like
Going back to the I statements.
Taking ownership of it. It's something that I still continue to work on, and I have to catch myself. And it's like harder when I feel invalidated, when I'm not heard. Right. So like here I am trying to like my hardest to communicate myself in a healthy way. But the other person doesn't even stop to listen, or just totally zones out. So yeah, I guess that's one weakness that I feel like is something I'm working on, that when I do go into a relationship will be of great benefit.
No, I feel you. What about you, Mike?
Oh boy. Well, I actually don't have any problems, so I have no weaknesses. So let's continue.
I am so glad to have you as a friend, and I'm also so saddened by the fact that you're what do you call it?
Delusional?
No, dirtied by my imperfections.
It's
I'm so
unfortunate.
sorry to kind of put that on you.
I'm sorry too. But somebody has to. Somebody has to do
be
it.
the standard.
No.
Such a hard burden.
Honestly, I've been thinking about that because there's just so much.
I mean, if you
Go
don't have
from
one
one
at the
extreme
top
to
of
the
No,
your
here,
other.
I'll tell you what. Think about it for a second.
Okay.
One area that I struggle a lot is with the minutia of life. So the day to day, it's just Benny. I struggle with the day to day, like routines. I don't know why it is, but I just can't. Like my mind is just so occupied with other more important things. I mean, as soon as I wake up, I pray, and then I'm just so preoccupied with, okay, I got to make sure the podcast is edited, that my work is done, that, did I work enough on my novel this week, or I have to go to tennis at some point during the day. When am I going to go? Like, did I make sure to hydrate before I get there? So like my head is just so into focusing on success that when it comes to, I mean, I'll be honest, washing my dishes, it is such a struggle for me.
I can tell.
It is.
Don't worry, I struggle too.
It is so hard for me. Or like, I'll give you another example. Sometimes I start laundry, and then the next day I'm like, oh crap, I forgot to switch it out. And then I have to wash the clothes again, like a total noob. So
man.
it's just like the small things in life that I don't know why, but it's like they just, like, I don't know. So what that tells me though is that when I look for a partner, even though I'm working on mitigating them, I know that I need someone, and I'm looking for someone who can enjoy the in-betweens of life, the in-between of the events, because I don't. So I need to piggyback off of their experience and feed off of their energy. Whereas whenever we're doing something, I'm all in, I'm there, I give 110%. So having someone in my life who can help with the slow moments, I feel would be incredibly beneficial. So I feel like that's one of the reasons why it's super good to get to know your weaknesses, get to know who you are, so that you can, plan around
accordingly.
it. And our end game here as a dating podcast, look for someone who can help you complement that.
Yes. I remembered what I was going to say earlier. And I feel like a good way to come up with a plan is with a professional, because a lot of the times we come up with unhealthy coping mechanisms for those weaknesses. Like, for example, we may have high expectations. So then you say, I'm going to work on that. So usually people revert to no expectations. And that is not the answer.
Right.
Or,
right.
for example, like, I have trust issues. So then it's like, I'm just not going to share. So, like, a lot of the times we come up with unhealthy coping mechanisms. So when we're really intentional about working on these weaknesses, it is good to go to the Bible, to go to a health professional, to come up with healthy things to actually help with the problem, not to ease your anxiety or ease that fear by doing the opposite. Because it's so easy to go into I don't care mode.
And to seesaw between one extreme and the other.
And I feel like I saw that in my life, like a lot of the times, especially younger, I had really high expectations of people, of just like the world. And when it wouldn't come about, it's like, well, like my world was destroyed. So then I reverted to, well, like, okay, well, I'm not going to have high expectations anymore. I'm just not going to expect anything from anybody. And obviously then it led to me kind of having this I don't care attitude, like, oh, you can do that, whatever, I don't care. And I feel like I still see some of those remains of like that kind of I don't care attitude that I still have to work on, even though I'm addressing of like, it's not I don't care attitude anymore. It's
I see what
more
you're
of
saying.
like, I'm not expecting all of this. Like, I know people are imperfect and they make mistakes, but there is something I like. There are expectations that we should all expect, like respect and
I like that.
clarity and communication. Like, that is not asking a lot. Because I feel like a lot of the times you can say, that's asking for a lot. And it's not. It's asking for basic human decency. So looking for help to properly make a plan is good.
Agreed. How about you, Mike?
All right, so I finally, after thinking long and hard, finally figured out something. And it kind of almost, I guess, stems from what you guys both just said. I, from a very young age, I've always been big picture oriented. And so, like, I remember one time, this is back in elementary school, I might have been third or fourth grade, and we had a, school project that we had to do, and we had to like design like a board game or something, or some kind of game.
That's it. That's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, I love, when I first heard it, I was like, oh man, this is so cool. And then my mind started racing. I had like all these huge ideas, and then I just had a picture of what I wanted. And I'm a creative person. I like doing creative things, and so when I started to do it though, oh my gosh.
Was it exhausting for you?
Yes. And I hated it. And turned out to really, it was so embarrassing. And like everybody else was finished with theirs, and I had to stay in during recess to finish mine because I could not finish it. I couldn't do it. I had something in my mind, but didn't realize how much work goes into it.
The perfectionism of like getting it right.
He's talking about just
too
grasping
big picture.
the idea.
Yeah.
Like idea wise, he grasped it.
Yeah.
But the actual steps to get there, he's like, oh man, I hate this.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
This is not it.
And that was fourth grade. It was funny. My mom was a teacher too. So, that always stuck with me. I don't know why that just came into my head, but that's kind of stuck with me still. Like, I've always been that type of person. Like, I have ideas, and it kind of stems from what you were talking about, the daily minutia. It kind of goes to that, there's steps to things, right?
Right.
You're not just gonna, for me, want to get my pilot's license, want to go into medical school. There's a lot of steps to that. Now, thank God I've been able to do those steps. I just have one more step left. But I'm
get your stuff together, Michael.
Right? It's a big step, but it's just one more step. But like, it's taking me, some time to do it where I probably should have done it already. And I can look at that in many things in life, even when it comes to other girls. I've tried to counteract that. But like, I've gone straight to the punch sometimes. Sometimes it worked. Like ask a girl to go out, and I literally met a girl in the airport and we went out.
Yeah.
I
remember that. Yeah.
Sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't. But like, if you're trying to establish something that's lasting,
You can't rush it.
You can't rush it. It takes time. It takes steps.
It takes tact.
It takes tact.
Like it can
takes a lot
go
of prayer.
like relatively fast, but there's you still can't rush the steps.
Yes.
You can maybe speed run through them in some situations, but you can avoid the steps.
Yes, exactly. There's steps to it. And, a friend told me that, you don't date to get to know someone. You date someone that you know, or like that you're already friends with.
That's a good point. You don't date to get to know someone.
Yeah, you're dating them because
that's just good advice.
Obviously you're gonna, know more about them while you're dating, but like,
Right.
you
There's
don't wanna,
levels to
get
this.
into that relationship, like commit to that person, and you still don't know who they really are.
Yeah.
You should already know who they are, and that takes steps. That takes levels to get to. And so that's where I think I've been. Well, that's where I, from like clearly being in fourth grade, have always struggled with that. And so it took me some realization, and still it's taking some time to get to that place where I can just enjoy the steps it takes, take
there.
time, get to know the person. And advance things with God.
I think a good way to frame it would be to have fun with the steps.
Enjoy the journey.
Yeah, enjoy the journey, and that's again easier said than done, because again a lot of times it's like Michael was saying, it's difficult for him, and it's not just it's not just him. It's difficult for a lot of us at different points in time. So with that said, I guess I want to stop us here. This is a good stopping point. To just kind of as a recap, we talked about the importances. Forgive me. We talked about the importance of mental health in the context of dating, right? We talked about how the internal health is equally as important as the physical health. We talked about how if we don't deal with those things, we can approach the wrong person, either with mommy or daddy issues. We talked about that. And also we talked about how that without getting to know ourselves, it can lead to choosing, like I said, the wrong person to date, in terms of looking for a savior to your specific trauma or childhood hurt, rather than a partner. And then we also talked about kind of the 3 easy action steps to get a mental health. Abby mentioned number 1, go to God. He's the one who he came to heal our insides first, then our outsides when it comes to eternal life. The second step we talked about talking to a mental health professional and going to see the benefits that they have, which Abby was talking about, them being a soundboard and them helping you frame things and identifying blind spots so that you can then deal with those issues. And then we also talked about the third step, which is getting to know yourself a little better, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations and dealing, so that you can learn to deal with those things, and also taking inventory of your family and your friendships, and then also learning how to frame your past and things like that.
And before we end this episode, I should say that we've talked about seeking help, and there's so many therapists out there, and you're like, where do I start? Well, if you're an Adventist and you're looking for an Adventist therapist, there's this network called Abide Network. It's a network of Adventist therapists and coaches who are throughout the country who are willing and able to help. And also there's regular avenues like BetterHelp.com. You can also find a Christian therapist there. I'm not saying Christian therapists are only in certain places. And I'm sure there's more websites out there, but those are the 2 off the top of my mind where you can go seek a professional if that's what you desire. There's also your pastor too, where he can orient you on the spiritual things and your spiritual walk with God in working through that sin. So I feel like that was an important thing to have in this episode.
Thank you for pointing that out. And just before we go, I guess I just want to leave you, our listeners, and us with just pointing out that this is a lifelong journey. You're, a path to a better mental health is not okay, I did it, now I'm done. It's always a progressing thing. So if you feel like you're behind, there's no need to fret. There's no need to worry, because we all had to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So don't feel like, I have to get my stuff together 100% before you start dating or before you start meeting someone. Even though these are good things to take into account and to kind of, as a sort of quasi checklist per se, it's not an end all be all. Just get started on the journey, talk to God, find a health professional if that's something that's for you, and spend time with yourself. At the end of the day, a better you is going to mean a better partner for your partner. And if you like your partner, you're going to want a better partner for them, in which case that's going to be you.
Mm-hmm. And I would just like to say, we keep saying, because for me, I've always thought that, I was lacking in an area, or I wasn't good enough, or people were better than me. I had like low self-esteem for a little while. And, I feel like a lot of people have those, thoughts and struggles. And I just want to let people know that, wherever you are in life, whether you are single or not, where there's things about you that you want to change, it doesn't mean you're necessarily, or it doesn't mean at all that you're behind the game, that you're not good enough. Everybody has a different life. Everybody has a different story. Everybody has different backgrounds.
Very true.
Life treats people differently. I already said last week, or we already made the point last week, that this world isn't fair either, right? That we live in a sinful world. Things happen, but that doesn't mean you're necessarily worse than somebody else because you're not having certain experiences in life, or you're struggling with other things that you think other people aren't struggling with. Even though we know a lot of people still struggle with these things, they just don't admit it, right? So yes, just realize that we're all on the same playing field here, because to Christ we're all the same. To Jesus, he sees us all the same. We all need him as our savior. So that's what I, tell myself, and that's why I just want to let people know that, we're all the same here. Don't ever feel like you're beneath someone.
Yeah, and we all have our own journeys, and God's timing is perfect. And a lot of the times you may not know of like, oh, well, how do I work on this? Or I'm not ready to work on this. That's okay, right? God's going to guide you in the adequate time, because sometimes you may want to rush into fixing something, but you may not be ready
for that something.
And you
doesn't mean you're not a good person if you're not ready.
Exactly.
Just because you're not ready doesn't mean like you're a bad
I love this Ellen White
person.
Where she says, God does not lead his people otherwise than they themselves would choose to be led if they could see the end from the beginning. In other words, if God has put a pause on me right now, if we could see the
you would
results,
be like, thank you, God. Thank you for putting that pause on me.
And be like, oh,
I would have done that too.
Yeah.
Right.
Or if we could just see everything that's in our unconscious. A lot of the times we want to bring up everything in our unconscious, and it's like, it's there for a reason.
But I'm glad, I'm glad we don't see everything, because, man,
it's not coming up. Sometimes it's for a reason, and it's to save you.
Maybe it's a blessing.
Because if I knew the path that God was trying to take me, I would mess it up. So I'm glad I see through a glass dimly.
Yeah.
Here, why don't we go ahead and pray? Father in heaven, thank you for loving us the way that you do. I want to thank you for having been with us throughout this past 2 or so hours. And Father, I just want to pray that the message gets across here, which is that you want to save us and that you want a healthy dating life for every single one of us. And Father, part of that dating life is a healthy us individually, internally. Father, you desire to save us from sin and to save us from ourselves even. God, I pray that as we begin to tackle the internal issues, you can be with us every step of the way. Thank you for being there, for being with us, and for providing solutions where we ourselves can't see them. Be with us throughout the rest of this week, and thank you for loving us the way that you do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thanks for spending time with us in The Pursuit. we're very excited about continuing the conversation on Christ-centered dating. We'd like to hear what your thoughts were on the episode, or even a personal story that fits this episode or that topic just right. You can do so on our social media channels at thepursuit, all one word, .bs, or on our website at baerstone.com/thepursuit. Again, that's Baerstone, BAER, stone.com/thepursuit. You can find future episodes wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as our website, where you'll find exciting bonus content we'll be releasing very soon. A special thanks to Attractive for making this episode possible. Attractive is a web firm that specializes in making and maintaining uniquely functional and appealing websites for Adventist organizations. Whether it's your local church, junior academy, conference, or camp website, Attractive would be more than happy to make sure you're representing Christ in an attractive and functional way in the digital realm. You can find more information about Attractive and their services at itsattractive.com. Again, that's all one word, ITS, attractive.com. Thanks again to Attractive for making this episode possible. We appreciate you spending time with us, and I hope you'll join us again soon. Cheers.